Yeah, I'm Paul Archer. Let me take you into the last part, if you like, of our Magnificent Seven, which are these 7 ways or 7 things to think about if you're doing virtual selling with customers and clients. And I've got 3 to finish off with for you, just to give you the full set, if you like. Now, the 5th one is what I call framing. So let's put this up for you, framing. Now, framing is not the image as such, it's what frame you find yourself in. What's behind you, in other words. Now, I call this a zoomscape or a zoom zone or a teamscape, which is my phrase that I use for what is behind you on the actual Zoom call itself. And everyone's got their favourite zoom zones, if you like, or teamscapes. I've got a whiteboard behind me here, but I've got different imagery around this office or this basement. I've got pictures, I've got like a sort of an on-air sign over there, you might have seen me use that. I've got some little models of London buses over there, which I have sort of subtly behind me as I'm presenting. And that's known as your Zoom zone. A lot of people like to use bookcases and stuff like that. And we'll talk about my Hateful 8 in another video, which are the 8 types of backgrounds or methods that people use which aren't particularly very good. And we'll talk about those in another video for you. But it's all about framing yourself as to what's behind you. There's good, there's bad, and there's downright ugly as well, what goes on behind you. Right now I've got a whiteboard, which is what I'm using to jot things down as I go along. And people use backgrounds and green screens and all sorts of things which they like to use, and that's fine. We'll talk about that in the 7th Magnificent 7. So be aware then of your Zoom zone is what I'm saying there for you, first of all. Have a look what's behind you and curate it, really. Get it looking good. Get it looking just right that suits you, and have that background there virtually all the time. Now, the big rule though for framing is the rule of thirds, as we call it. You might have heard this one before, the rule of thirds. Now, what this one relates to is professional photography. If any of you out there are professional photographers, you know about this one. And what the rule of thirds does is it positions your face in part of the screen. So if you were to take your frame that you've created, and there's a picture of the frame, that's you. People tend to find themselves all over this, but there are these 2 lines, I should say, which divides the frame horizontally into 3, called the rule of thirds. Each one has a third, that's all it comes down to. And the rule really is that your head should be around here. That's where your head should be. So watch the news tonight, have a look at the BBC, see where the presenter puts themselves. They will put themselves in that line there, and ideally your eyes should be there. And then obviously your neck and your frame, whatever, should go down here. And that's the rule of thirds. Not too big, not too small, but that's up to you, of course. That's up to your framing. Right now, my position here is my head is in the top third, and my eyes are probably along the line there or thereabouts anyway. Depends if I move forwards or backwards, but it's usually around there, and I've got my body here. So I'm kind of adhering to the rule of thirds. That's framing. Now, remember the Hateful 8, which is another film by Quentin Tarantino, which I want to share with you in the next video. That's the 8 types of background or framing that don't look very good. That's coming out a little bit later. But the 6th one I want to talk to you about in my Magnificent 7 is the camera. So let's pop that down there for you, the camera. There you go. If you're going to be doing virtual selling, you do need a camera. Obviously, really, isn't it? And most people tend to use their default camera within their laptop or PC. They might have a camera on the top of the screen. Most people tend to use that, and it does a reasonably good job. Not brilliant, but modern computers now come with fairly reasonably good cameras. Apple Macs, those sort of things tend to have good cameras. But the key thing with the camera is to spend a few pounds on it, a few dollars, and get yourself a decent external camera, which would pick up a really good image. Most people tend to have either a PC or a screen. So just draw the monitor here. Most people have a monitor of some description, and most people will have the camera sitting on the top of the screen. And that external webcam, USB to the computer, picks up a reasonably good image. If you've got software that can operate that camera, you can use it to zoom in or zoom out or refocus, move it around. That's particularly good, so you can work out your zoom zone as well, based upon the camera's software. So that's great. And the more you spend, pretty much the better the quality, really. You can buy a DSLR camera, one of the great big lenses that photographers use at sports matches. You can get a connector that talks to your computer and will turn that into a webcam. I've got one now, which I'm talking to now, my Canon 80E or something DSLR. But I've got webcams, Logitech Streamcams, which are reasonably good and do a decent job when I'm online as well. So that's the first thing to think about when it comes to the camera. Don't rely on the default option built within your laptop. Won't be very good. Now, on the subject of camera, which is more skills really, is where you position your camera to have the best outcome. Now, the best outcome, apart from the rule of thirds, which I talked about, is how you relate to your customer on the screen. Now, right now, I'm looking at the lens of the camera, which is probably what you're looking at as well, because you're looking at me, aren't you? My eyes are looking at the lens, you're looking through the lens, and I can see you, and we're giving each other eye contact. Fine. Never been in doubt. But that's easy because I'm looking at the camera lens, but I can't see you. If you appear on the scene, and you're here, for example, on my video, so there's a picture of you, there's your head, and there's your body, and there's your smile, and there's your eyes. What am I going to do as a human? I'm going to zone in on your eyes, because that's what we do. We can't stop ourselves. But I won't be giving you eye contact because the camera lens is where your eyes are coming from, but I'm looking at those eyes. So I'm effectively not looking in your eyes. And that could be lasting for half an hour, 45 minutes, and that's not good. So there's a couple of things you can do here. You can get technology to solve that problem. There's all sorts of gizmos you can buy now to solve that problem. There's 3 or 4 actually you can opt for. I use a clamp tripod that clamps to the desk, and it has what's called a gooseneck. So the gooseneck is a flexible pole which puts the webcam literally in front of the screen. You can see what I've done there. I've kind of just drawn that. So although the webcam is blocking the person's face a little bit, I'm looking at the webcam and I'm looking at the person's face at the same time. So that's a really good option, and I use that when I do one-to-one stuff with customers. If I'm at a distance from the camera, the pure fact that I'm at a distance means I'm probably giving them eye contact even though I'm not. So that helps. But if you're close up, you've got to have something like this. There's a gadget you can buy called, I think it's called Flexi Pro or something, but it's a plastic strip that hangs off of the monitor with a little lip to it, a little box. And the idea is you put your webcam on this plastic strip, which then wheels across the top of the screen. And you can wheel it across to be in front of the person's face, and therefore you're looking at the camera and looking at the face. So it's the same element really that does the job. Some people purchase these sort of mirror telephoto gadgets above, which kind of redirect the image of the screen into the camera, which is behind it. But it's a little expensive and quite a complicated way of doing things, but it does actually do the job. And modern computers now, they're manufacturing webcams behind the screens. So some of the latest laptops that are coming out now actually have the webcam built into the screen. So it kind of comes a bit like one of those police interviews you see on telly with the one-way mirror where the people are seeing you but you can't see it. So there's a camera behind the screen. So that'll solve the problem moving forward, and you'll be able to move the camera lens around your monitor, if you like, digitally. So all pretty good stuff. But you need to give eye contact, really. It's the whole thing. You can use skills as well. And that's the final point to make for you. If I can sort of squeeze the monitor again there. So there's your monitor. There's your webcam, there's the person's face, and there's the eyes. And all you do here is you use a gaze process. So you gaze between the camera, the eyes, and back up to the camera again, and you do like a triangular gaze, as opposed to locking in on the eyes of the person. You gaze between the lens and the eyes as you continue your conversation. And that's a good thing to do, because that gives eye contact. And besides, nobody looks at the lens all the time, do they? You get a headache if you do that. You do look away from people. I mean, nobody glares at people for half an hour, do you? You look away, you look around. So that's a skills way of handling that particular problem. Now, the last one of my Magnificent Seven for you, just to finish off our little story here, is what I call your background. So let's sneak this one in here for you, shall we? Your background. Now, I'm not talking here about your framing. That's fine, and your zoom zone, all that kind of. I'm talking about the background that you choose to use. and that is a virtual background, in other words, a digital background. A lot of people like to use virtual backgrounds, don't they? And you've seen them on Zoom. Somebody's got a picture of a beach behind them. They're not actually there, by the way, or the Golden Gate Bridge or something like that. They're not actually there either. And people choose all sorts of different backgrounds. IKEA, the furniture manufacturer, they give free backgrounds. Microsoft do them. The BBC are giving their backgrounds away, photographs of the EastEnders at Queen Vic pub, or Doctor Who's scene in the TARDIS. You can get all sorts of backgrounds. And they're great, but the thing about backgrounds is you've got to be aware that you are hiding something. Most customers will think, hold on, what's he hiding? What's actually going on behind there? So maybe a corporate background might be disguising all sorts of things behind it. And it's just this mistrust can sometimes creep in. So you can be a bit careful of that. The other thing about backgrounds is they can look awful, absolutely awful. It's one of my hateful 8, which I'm going to go into in the next video. But the backgrounds themselves, the green screens as we call it, can get around that problem, because most people just click on a background and it has this scary look, doesn't it? It has this sort of like this sort of dead person's look with hands all sort of floppy and light going all over the place. It's not clean. To get over that problem, you need a green screen. And here I have my green screen, which I just pull down here, light up. Now I tell Zoom I've got a green screen, so when I go on the virtual background, it gives a really good image, because the whole point about the green screen or chroma key is that the lens will take the green out and replace with the image, but it does that really cleanly. Without a green screen, the software struggles, especially when you sort of move around, stuff like that. But you have to light this thing up properly, and you have to tell Zoom or Teams that you've got a green screen, and it makes a really big difference to your image. So that's background, really. And you can watch my videos and see some of the backgrounds that I use. I don't tend to use backgrounds that much, actually, if truth be told. I think the fact that they are hiding something is the main issue here. Okay, you may not want people to see your background, I get that, if you're in a kitchen or something like that, but you can use a blur option which blurs the background on Zoom and Teams, and that makes any background look blurry, which is okay. People accept that because they appreciate you may have an office behind you or something. We don't want a lot of movement, because too many people moving around in the background is quite distracting, so blurring might be a good image for you. But a green screen works. You don't have to have a fancy one like I have coming off the ceiling. You can certainly have one that pins to the back of your chair, for example. It's only 50 quid. And you can quickly click on the button and the green screen gives you a virtual background. But don't overdo it. It's a gimmick. It's a gizmo. That's all it is, virtual backgrounds. I think people need to see who you really are. What is your background? Don't over-create it. That, of course, is down to your Zoom zone and how that looks. So there we have our Magnificent 7. I've gone through audio, I've gone through internet speed, ambient noise, lighting, framing, camera, and the last one there for you is background. The next video set will take a look at my Hateful 8, which is a great film, by the way, if you ever get to watch it. But this talks about the 8 backgrounds or framings that are an absolute nightmare. So that's coming up very shortly for you. I'm Paul Archer. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.